Technology. Look at that. So that's just an example. There may be other areas where you can leverage technology, leverage your vendors to do things for you. Does that make sense? Okay, now we get to the real futuristic stuff. And I'll spend a little bit of time on this. This is where we get into wizards, clouds, and the invisible man. So there's usually a joke I tell here. So if you've heard it before, I apologize. But anyway, how many people read the comic strip Peanuts? And you've seen Charlie Brown and Linus, you know. I like Linus, he's the intellectual one, and Charlie Brown's like me, you know, the every dude, you know, that gets the football pulled away by Lucy all the time and all that other stuff. Anyway, they were laying on their backs on the grassy knoll, and they were looking up at clouds. Excuse me. You may have done this sometime when you were a kid, and you try to find images up in those clouds. You ever done that? Sure you have. And so Linus is looking up there, and Charlie's looking up there, and Charlie turns to Linus and said, Linus, what do you see up in those clouds? And Linus looked around and studied for a bit, and he said, look at that cloud over there, Charlie. He said, doesn't that look like an outline of the country of Belize, formerly the British Honduras? I said, oh, look over there. Charlie, see that grouping of clouds over there? He says, doesn't that look like a portrait by the artist Modigliani? Oh, and Charlie, look over here in these clouds over here. He says, doesn't that look exactly like a depiction of the Apostle Paul, complete with the stoning of Stephen? And then Linus turned to Charlie and said, Charlie, what do you see up there? And Charlie shrugged his shoulders and said, well, I was going to say a horsey and a ducky, but you changed my mind. So hopefully what we're going to do here is we're going to look at some clouds, we're going to look at some things, and maybe I'll have a chance to affect your perception of some things. When we created the 5 series that Angela was talking about, this was my driving mantra, right? My driving mantra. I want to create a training system that doesn't require training to use it. And not just from the user side, but from the administrative side. Wow, that was a stretching goal, wasn't it? It's sort of like the anti-training message. I'm trying to do away with training? No. What was in the market at the time was, you know, software that almost required a PhD in order to administer it. And lo and behold, as they added more and more features, and you had administrators, and if that administrator left, you had to go back and retrain somebody to get a PhD again to use it. And I thought, that's ridiculous. There's got to be a better way to do this out there. And so we worked on a design on that, and that's where we came up with our first concept, wizards, right? How many people watched Wizard of Oz when you were growing up? Still watch it? Track the kids, now the grandkids out to watch it, you know, do all that other stuff. That's great. That's not the kind of wizard we're talking about. Okay? What we're talking about really is designing something in a system that is simple itself. But here's the key. Simplicity is harder to do than complexity. Would you agree with that? To design something that's truly simple and elegant is far harder than to just stack on with baling wire and scotch tape a bunch of features and then say, I hope it fits together. Simplicity is harder. Give you a case in point. How many people own an iPod with a wheel on it? Okay. Do you remember the ones that used to have the 4 buttons at the top and the big wheel? Do you remember those? Okay, that's that long ago. Seems like yesterday that I bought one. I bet if you go on eBay, you can find one, you know, in the antique section or something like that. But the first iPod I bought, you had 4 buttons at the top and you had the big wheel, right? And the problem with that is if I held it in this hand, I had to push one button and then use my thumb or my finger. It was a 2-finger operation, right? So I love Apple and I love, you know, Steve Jobs and all the stuff that he does. What they're really great at is design and simplicity and cleanness and that whole thing, right? And so the next iteration came out and guess what it had? The 4 buttons were gone. And all those features were on that one big wheel, and then you could do it just with your thumb. Now the bad thing is you could probably drive and do that at the same time, which may have increased automobile accidents, but that one little step that seems almost insignificant to me was a quantum leap in terms of simplicity. Simplicity, okay? So this is the wizard that I'm talking about. If you go into our 5 series, you're going to see on the administrative side some examples that look like this. And you'll see this, I just put this picture in here, this little cap and this wand. And a wizard, you know what a wizard does, it just steps you through the process, right? And then it tells you as you go through, you are now on step 1 of this process. So if you want to create a learning plan, or what is this, create a course, okay? Step 1, you fill out these forms. Then you click the button and you go to step 2. And then you click another button, so it's a logical sequence. And then when you get done, you get to check all of your work and say, did I do everything I wanted to do? And then I go boom, and I accept it. And then something happens here. So up until this point, this was the iPod with the 4 buttons at top and the one big wheel. When we did this, I thought we took the 4 buttons off and we made an elegant leap. Then the system comes back and asks you, wow, based on what you just did, most people that go through the system did one of 4 things. What would you like to do next? So think about this. Now I can take a 5-step, 7-step process, and I can make a very complex string out of this, if I wanted to, that you could then link together, because it says, you've done this, what do you want to do next? You've done this, what do you want to do next? It doesn't sound like a lot, but I will tell you, if you have a supervisor who only does a report once every 6 months, and they want to come in and do something like that again, that can be revolutionary technology. That exists today in our 5 series. The Invisible Man. Am I going to talk about The Invisible Man? No. How many people remember the original movie, The Invisible Man? I see a couple of nods here, right? What I mean by invisibility is this. I'm going to ask you a question. Why do you need to go to a site, sign in, put your password in, then go in, and then register for a course to take a course? Doesn't that seem like a lot of steps to do? Doesn't it? And what about if you didn't want to do that and you started to challenge that thought and say, what we're really trying to do is do away with the LMS. It's there, but we want to make it invisible. How do we do that? Well, we've got a guy here, he's an architect. His name is Bob Skidmore. I thought he was going to pop in here a little bit because he's real proud of this stuff and he's doing a great job. This now, it's not available yet, but it will be available soon. We call it GeoAir, okay? And it simply means that you can be doing anything you want to do. You can be in Google, you can go to Yahoo, you can go to the Wikipedia, you can do anything, you can go to your own, homepage site, whatever it is. And down here in this little there's a little button there, a little icon, and when you want to think about training, you can click on that. So it moves from being invisible to being slightly visible, and everything a learner or administrator wants to do, you can do from here. You can access a catalog, you can find a course, you can register for that course, you can take a look at your transcripts, you can do almost everything you want to do, and when you don't want to do it, click it and boom, boom, it's gone. And behind the scenes, it's working there saying, I'm still here, and I'm here when you need me, and I will become slightly visible if you want me, but if you don't want me, go about your normal workday, because that's what you really want to do. You don't want to have to worry about another program called an LMS to have to worry about it, right? The idea is create a system that doesn't require training, right? Another thing is, if I don't want to do that, let's say I'm a supervisor, and I want to send information out, and maybe it's a class, and I want everybody to take it. Do I have to go back, have everybody register, do all that? No, I want to push it out, have them take it, and I still want to see what the results are or whatever. So those are things we're working on in a learning management system to basically make it seem like it's going away. Now the risk is, if you don't see it, does it have any value? I think it does, because it'll do everything that you want it to do. You just won't see it. It becomes a part of the normal workflow. And think about that. Think about that for a minute. If I have a cell phone, right? There's a lot, not the interface that you deal with, but there's one technology that allows me to dial a series of numbers, and if I do it correctly, what can I do? I can talk to anybody in the world, right? I can talk to anybody in the world. Now think of the technology that is behind all of that and how to get it work, and you don't even know what it's doing. It's just there ready to make it happen. That's what we mean by invisibility. I think that's a wave of the future, not just for LMS technology, but for all software. All software, I think, is going to move in this direction. Portability. Wouldn't you like to be there? Well, I have a little fear of heights, but I mean, wouldn't you like to be out and about, right? Of course, we don't want to have wires, we don't want to have, networks, we have to, anywhere I am in the world. Like, I just got back from Mexico, and we were taking this little trip through the Mexican jungle, right? On our way to a little surfing village called Sayulita. And in the middle of the jungle, I had 5 bars on my cell phone. And I swear, we don't have anybody from Sprint here, do we? I have been on Sprint's campus in Kansas City and lost my signal. And lost my signal. So, this portability idea, I think, is key. And we've had the ability to use our cell phones to access training before. This has been around for years. I've seen it. You've seen it at ASTD shows. Everybody, look, I can do it on my cell phone, And nobody ever does it, right? I think there's been a fundamental shift with these new kinds of phones, how many people have been on a plane and watched people watch a full-length feature movie on their phone?